All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another talk series presented by Liyab. Liyab is an e-learning startup focused on helping Gen Z Filipinos transition to working life. We do online events like this one and even programs like our free mock interview program that's starting this Saturday, all to make sure that students and fresh graduates like you, or basically the next generation of the Filipino workforce, have access to resources that are helpful in early career development. My name is Deirdre. I'm the founder of Liab, but also your moderator for this entire series. So speaking of this series, we organized this because we wanted to introduce to you learners not just where to look for jobs, but also so you can hear tips from representatives from online job boards on how to stand out on their specific platforms. Starting today until Thursday, we'll be live at 10 a.m. to get tips on how to apply on LinkedIn, Workbean, Fast Jobs, and Caliber. These platforms have their own strengths and benefits, so let's get started. Today, we are joined by Mika Reyes, who's currently a product manager at LinkedIn in the US. I actually worked with Mika before for a brief time back in 2015 when she was still an intern, but she's done so much more after that. And I'm personally excited to hear from her, not just because she works at LinkedIn, but also because I've seen her profile and her LinkedIn game is pretty strong. So I was also hoping to pick up a thing or two on how to maximize what the platform can do. And of course, if you are curious like me, you can leave some questions down in the comment section so we can address them later after her talk live. All right? So I'm not gonna like prolong this because I feel like there is so much to learn from Mika today. So Mika, you can take it away, and I'll be back after your talk.
Cool. Thanks so much, Z. Hi, everyone. Really excited to jump in and talk more about job hunting on LinkedIn. Just a little bit about me. I'm a product manager at LinkedIn. But way before that, as you mentioned, I was born and raised in the Philippines, interned in a health tech startup called MedGrocery. That's how we met. And since then, went through college, did a bunch of APM roles and product manager roles in startups in the Bay Area. And here I am at LinkedIn. At LinkedIn, I work at the jobs team. And what that means is you're all probably more familiar with the job seeking side. I'm on the hiring manager side and the recruiter side. So building products for them, but also it's all a marketplace. So have tips here, have some hacks for how to best use LinkedIn. Let's get started. One thing I want to share and emphasize here is that a really key value prop on LinkedIn, and my big piece of advice is making sure that you leverage your network. So at LinkedIn, you'll be able to see different connections, different people in different companies. And I think the great thing about LinkedIn is that you can leverage your network to job seek, reach out to them, get to know their companies, get to know their roles, and then eventually apply for a job. I emphasize this because there are a lot of different ways that you can brand yourself on LinkedIn and actively and passively recruit. Scope for today is going to be focused on the active and passive recruiting part. And as mentioned, you can be a big thought leader. If you're a product manager, for example, you can write on your feed about product management, and then people will reach out to you and hire you. But today I'll focus on the different products, specifically 10 different tips and 10 different products within LinkedIn that you can leverage for passive and active recruiting. I'm going to break it down in 3 steps. So key steps in the job hunt. First is the skills building and signaling. Second is opportunity searching. And third is getting and nailing that interview. I'll focus the 10 different things and split it up according to these categories. In the very end, I'll also give a summary. So first, skills building and signaling. What do I mean by this? Initially, before you start your job search, you need a resume, you need a profile. You need to build those skills and feel confident that when you get into the interviews, you have those skills built and prove that to the employers, right? First product here is the profile or the resume. This is probably the single most important thing to nail when you're starting your job hunt, both passive and actively. So here's an example of my profile resume. Really what I want to emphasize here is to take advantage of the About section. The featured section, this is relatively new. Now you can add in different articles, different posts, different links, and that catches employers' eyes. And the very bottom is the experience section, which you're hopefully familiar with. You show the companies and the roles and the education and the experiences that you've been through. I say take advantage of these because, as an example, and this is what happens internally within LinkedIn, is in the about section for certain skills or for certain amount of information, we're able to scrape that information and see which jobs you're be matching to, see what other products we're going to be building based on what people put there. And I'm sure employers are also going to be able to see that information and scrape through the different profiles. Second tip, as part of the profile resume, I say de-emphasize your education. And this is more if you're trying to brand yourself as someone more senior or getting out of the early entry level roles. This was helpful for me when I was listing out my resume to put education in the bottom, because that signals to employers that, hey, this person, although maybe they've just recently graduated, this person has a lot of experience, and that catches employers' eyes initially. Third general resume rule is to communicate impact via numbers. What I mean by this is, as a product manager, for example, I can say as one bullet of my resume, I created Jira tickets or create tickets for my engineers. But hey, every product manager has to be creating tickets for engineers and has to be doing these like run-of-the-mill stuff. What is something that makes you stand out? What is the impact that you made? Maybe it's X% revenue impact because of a feature that you made. Emphasize that and don't use the precious real estate of bullets for things that are expected of any person in your role. So communicate impact via numbers, and rule of thumb is put some number and impact of those numbers for every bullet on your resume. And lastly, keep it brief. And for your resume specifically, when you're handing that out, keep it in really good format in one page. And even in your LinkedIn, I definitely fell into the trap of like listing every single bit of experience, every single thing, every single volunteer opportunity. But it's important to brand myself in a specific way and really just emphasize the key things that I was working towards for my job hunting. I have more on this on my blog. But yeah, I talk about resume and outreach hacks, and it's at migreas.com. Little plug over there. But yeah, also happy to answer questions later on if you have anything else. One last thing on the resume part is you do have an option. You click more on your profile on LinkedIn, and it'll help you build a resume. So if you want to get started, if you already have something in your LinkedIn and you want to do something really quick, you can do that really quickly. Cool. Next. Ooh. Okay. Next is on the topic of skills building is we have LinkedIn Learning. This used to be lynda.com. We acquired lynda.com and is now part of the LinkedIn Learning platform. What you can do here is complete a course, and once you complete a course, it also gets added to your profile. Once you complete a course, you can also go through a certificate, and that also gets added to your profile. So bonus there. And there are a lot of different skills. I think a couple have been released that are free, so definitely check those out. There's a lot of like hard skills, so data, SQL, Excel, coding, etc. There's also a lot of soft skills. In the example that I have here, it's communication, it's time management, it's strategic thinking. So I highly recommend going through a couple of these and look for the free ones. There are a couple there. If you want to access your LinkedIn Learning platform, you can search it on Google LinkedIn Learning, or at the very top right of your of LinkedIn, there's what we call the work icon. Click that and you can click learning in some of the products featured. Cool. Next is skills assessments. This is a bit hidden down in your profile, but when you go to the skills and endorsements section, there's a section there that says you can take a skill quiz. Why is this important? What we see in our data is that completing a skills quiz for something that's specific to your role or specific to your industry makes you 30% more likely to get hired, because then that's a really strong signal that, hey, this person has proficiency in something. Let me check out their profile. Let me see more. So click skills and endorsements and take skill quiz. And there are a bunch of things. A lot of them are more hard skills right now. But if you can see on the left side, there's Adobe Acrobat, Adobe Animate, there's SQL, there's Excel, there's PowerPoint, there's Microsoft Office, Excel, there's that Excel, but a bunch of different programs that you can prove your skills in. I will warn that it is like there's a high bar. You need to pass, I believe, like 60 or 70% of the entire quiz. And it's not super easy. So I do challenge you to check it out, especially if you have that expertise. What happens after you pass that skills quiz is you get a badge, and that shows up on the skills endorsement section of your profile. And again, 30% more likely to get hired, because then that's shown in recruiters' lists, and that's a signal across LinkedIn. Cool. Just a quick recap there on the skills building and signaling part. There's a profile and resume, and if there's anything you take out of this, build that profile on LinkedIn, I think is the most important thing to nail. There's LinkedIn Learning to develop those skills, and there's skills assessments to prove out those skills to employers. I'm going to move on to the next section, which is opportunity searching. And there are really just two key things I want to emphasize here. So what I mean by opportunity searching is looking for the right role, the right job, and the right company for you. First is, if you don't already know and see this, is you can go through what we call Jobs Home. So you go to the Jobs tab on either your mobile LinkedIn Learning LinkedIn app or on desktop. And at the very top, or when you click this dot at the very top right, you can see a list of saved and applied jobs. Of course, if you haven't already saved or applied any to any of your jobs, then you won't see anything, but it helps collect all the things after you go through your job search. And you click that save button, it'll all show up here. And this is nice because then you see the curated list that you have. If you hadn't applied to it yet, you just saved it, there's your chance to come back and do all the things you need to do. There's a lot of iterations going on within LinkedIn to make this experience better. So it's easier for any one person to see the list of jobs and get through that process. So I'd highly recommend going through this after you go through your job search. Also within the jobs tab, save those jobs, apply to those jobs, and come back into this hub. And second thing is, once you have some of those saved jobs or apply jobs, or even if you're just going through the job search in general, it's important to also put in job alerts. Quick stat here is applying immediately makes you 2 times more likely to get hired. So what'll happen here is, again, in the jobs home tab, or when you're going through job search results, you can turn on these job alerts for the specific search that you have. So here I search for product manager in San Francisco, California. At the very bottom, you can turn on this toggle and turn on job alerts for that specific search query. And then you can go to your job alerts hub and change, maybe you don't want daily emails and notifications, maybe it's just an email. Change the settings there and manage those settings, and continue to add on. Once you do that, what LinkedIn will do is make your jobs home experience more curated to that specific job that you just put in an alert for. So what happened at the very last picture here is that instead of just showing me jobs that are recommended for me. It shows me the job queries specific to that job alert. So now LinkedIn knows which jobs I'm really interested in, which search results I'm really interested in, and will show that to me. I'll also get instant notifications. We call it Insta Jobs internally. I'll get instant notifications so that when a company post this job, I'll immediately get that notification. That helps me quickly apply to it, and makes me more likely to get hired. All right, recap on the opportunity searching part. Just two things I do want to emphasize. I assume already that you're searching for jobs. To take that step further is you can save those jobs and see the hub of saved and applied jobs. And you can set up job alerts, which makes you more likely to get hired if you're instantly able to apply. Cool. And the last part is getting and nailing that interview, or getting and nailing that opportunity in general. And there's 5, I believe, that I want to emphasize here. I think it's like one of the the meatier parts, and a lot of actively searching for that person to find you that right opportunity. All right. So one thing here, I think a lot of people are familiar with is the messaging part, the email part of LinkedIn. So you can do is use your credits to reach out to your connections, depending on whether you have premium or not. You'll have a cap at how many emails you're allowed to send. Use those wisely. I think, going back to the first thing I'd mentioned is like LinkedIn is a great place to leverage your network, and for any job hunting opportunity or time, you should always leverage your network to find that right opportunity for you. So this is an example of way back when I reached out to someone and they replied and said, yeah, sure, let's chat, let's grab coffee. We ended up going to this coffee shop and talking about his experience, and he eventually referred me. It was a cold outreach, and it was all because of this one email. A couple rules that I have for cold outreach is one, emphasize how you got to know them or how you're connected. So here at the very top, I was very honest. I just came across his profile and was very, very interested in understanding, okay, how did you get to your place in product? Second is be very clear about how they specifically will be able to help you out. I emphasized here that he was an early product person in Robinhood. And because he was early in his career, I was also early in my career. I wanted to get to know like how he's able to get to his place at that time. Third is share how you might add value. If this is already like more, if you're already making an ask specifically to like get them to refer you or anything else, how will you add value to their company? Or if you're gonna be applying, if they're the hiring manager and you're gonna be applying under their team, how are you gonna build value for their team? At this point, I wanted to just understand his role. So I didn't emphasize that quite yet. But what I did do is fourth is add a personal touch. So I talked about a friend, kind of took it out. I said, curious, how do you know this person that we're both like mutually connected to? And he also eventually ended up talking about that because then we have something in common. It shows that I did my research. So it put that in at the very end. And lastly, end with a simple ask. What exactly do you want out of this conversation, or what exactly do you want out of this relationship? And end with that simply. So a couple of rules there. I also wrote about this on my blog again, so check that out, but also happy to answer questions later. Okay, next is interview prep. This is a little bit hidden within LinkedIn, but it's also on your jobs home. Specifically on desktop, it's at the very top navigation. If you click more, then it'll show interview prep. What you're able to do at interview prep is there are a couple common questions. A lot of them are the behavioral common questions. You can click on those and you can practice and get feedback. So you can take a video of yourself, or you can type out your answers, and then you ask other people to give you feedback based on that answer that you gave. And you'll get that feedback, which is really cool. If you do have premium, you're able to see a couple people who gave answers and also critique their own answers, and watch videos there. Highly encourage this if you're already like more down funnel into the actual interview portion and you've got that interview. I think it's always great to get feedback if you're not already getting it from family and friends. Okay. Referrals and mutual connections. This isn't necessarily like a specific product within LinkedIn, but across all jobs and the job details pages, you'll see one of the what we call job flavors. You'll see, hey, you have 3 connections to this company, or hey, there's company alumni or school alumni that are working in this company currently. So a lot of data that shows, hey, reach out to these, or shows people you could reach out to, and you should take advantage of that. So as an example here is, if I search for Figma, which is the design tool, I see my friend Andy and 3 other connections who work there, but there's also 267 other employees that I can check out. So what I would do is, okay, since Andy and 3 other connections work here, who are some of these people that I can specifically ask to get a referral from, or maybe they're connected to someone who also works in product, and I want to get to know more about their product org. So I'd leverage those connections. We also have a feature, and this is only for some specific jobs that the hiring managers turn on. There's a feature where you can specifically ask for a referral from those connections. And what'll happen is we'll give you a template for how to ask that referral, and then you can message that connection on LinkedIn. So reaching out to someone that you're connected to in that company makes you 4 times more likely to get hired. And again, going back, I'll keep repeating this, leverage your network. LinkedIn is a great place to do that, but in general, I don't advise people to just like click apply without any in the company. Don't send your resumes out into the ether without anyone being able to vouch for you, because that's going to get lost, and best to think smartly about how you do that. So yeah, leverage your mutual connections. All right, down to the last 2. This one I'm really, really excited about. If you have been on LinkedIn recently, and I hope you have, we have this new feature, which is called #OpenToWork. And what we saw in the past couple of months because of COVID is that a lot of people are unemployed. And typically, right, like if you're unemployed, you don't want to be sharing that publicly. But because of COVID, there's a lot of people who are willing to give back to their community, and a lot of people who want to ask for this kind of help. And so what we did was we built a feature specifically for that. So Open2Work lets you tell LinkedIn and tell your network, hey, I'm interested in these job titles. I'm interested in these locations. I can start working now. I can be flexible. I have these job types. And at the very bottom, you have the option to either share with all LinkedIn members that you want these roles, or share with recruiters only. If it's recruiters, then it'll be private, but we get that data, we get that signal, and recruiters can reach out to you. And if it's shared with all LinkedIn members, what will happen is that your profile photo will show this green ring that says Open2Work. And beauty of that is that wherever you comment, wherever your profile photo or your name is on LinkedIn, other people can see, whoa, okay, this person, they're they're in my network. They're asking for help. Let me see how I can help them, how I can refer them, how I can connect them to opportunities. So I highly recommend checking this out. If you're not willing to share that publicly, that's okay. Especially, if you do have a job right now, makes sense that you don't want to be sharing that publicly. You can always do it privately, and only recruiters will be able to see that signal. But it's really great because then we know the data of which jobs you're really interested in, and recruiters will get access to that immediately, and they'll reach out to you. Last one, and I'm even more excited about this, though it is like a soon to come feature. I'm excited about this because I'm the one building it. So what Open to Hiring is that we saw from profile data, and this is also similar to Open to Work, we saw that a lot of people who are hiring managers or recruiter put on their headlines, I'm hiring, we're hiring, like check out our jobs or opportunities. As you can see here, if I search LinkedIn product hiring, there are people in the past who are hiring PMs. They say in their headlines that they're hiring. And what we're doing is productizing that almost similar to Open to Work, where we then allow you to put in jobs as a hiring manager, to put in jobs in your profile and say, hey, I'm hiring for a sales manager or a product manager. And job seekers, what they can do is see that signal, or see, we're also going to have like a purple thing on your profile. If they see that, then they'll go through your profile, and instead of like badgering the hiring manager and messaging, they'll at least know that, hey, this person is hiring for these specific roles. Let me apply to these roles. Let me also share to them like how valuable I can be in their team or in their company, and that gives like a direct access to who the hiring manager is. And I'm really excited about this. Because the way that I got my job at LinkedIn was actually through this hack, where I searched LinkedIn product hiring and saw a bunch of people who did have this hiring tag on their profile headlines. The first person there, I looked at her profile and was like, cool, like she looks like a cool boss. Like, why don't I apply to her jobs? And what I did is message her, and she's my boss today. So really excited to be launching this really soon. I think definitely within the next quarter or the next half, because it'll be really valuable for hiring managers and recruiters, which are the users and personas that I'm building for. But I know it's also going to be really, really valuable for job seekers. And until then, you can also use the same hack. Search for the company and the role, and then the word hiring, and see who currently are hiring for those companies. Cool. Really quick summary. We talked about skills building and signaling, and emphasized using a profile, LinkedIn Learning, and then putting those skills that you built from LinkedIn Learning through skills assessments. We talked about opportunity searching, and beyond just searching, literally typing on that search bar, you can go a step further and see the jobs that you applied to and saved, and you can turn on job alerts. And then we talked about getting and nailing that interview, or nailing that opportunity. There's interview prep, which helps give you feedback for answers that you have in your interview. There's referrals and mutual connections and emails, which helps you reach out to people within that company that you're interested in. And then there's Open to Work and Open to Hiring, where you can signal that you're open to opportunities, and then eventually you'll also be able to see who of the hiring managers or recruiters are open to hiring at that time. And throughout, I emphasize this idea of leveraging your network, which I think LinkedIn is going to give a lot of opportunity for you to do that. But regardless, like definitely a big piece of advice to leverage your network. Reach out to people, grab virtual coffee with them, get to know them, get to know their roles and their companies, and that helps you get an in to ideally your dream job. Happy to answer questions. You can also email me at hello@migarias.com and check out my blog there. I read a little bit about the things that I talked about, and career hacks in general. Hopefully that was helpful.
All right. Thank you so much, Mika. I learned so much, and now I'm really excited to hear more about your job. I think like product and LinkedIn should be super fun for you as a person, I guess, who leveraged it to get jobs, but also as someone now who works for the company and is now designing for people who are hiring, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
particularly excited like when you talked about open to hiring, because I think like that the headline hack was something that like hiring managers still do to this
Mm-hmm.
day. um
Mm-hmm.
but I think that even takes it further, because like what you mentioned, I can already imagine like interacting with people on the platform. They can only see my profile picture, but now they'll be able to see that frame, and I'll be able to see that frame to see who's like open to being hired, for example. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a really really great feature. That, I mean, if you're a fresh grad, um, I guess it's pretty much understandable that you are looking for a job. So that's one hack that you can definitely, or one feature that you can definitely leverage right now,
Mm-hmm.
and put that on your profile so that companies know you're open to being hired.
Mm-hmm.
While we are waiting, I guess, for questions to come in on the Facebook Live, again, for those who are tuned in, if you have any specific questions for Mika, please put them in the comment section. I actually have like a ton of notes from,
Nice.
yes, from your talk, and I wanted to start with the resume, because this is something that I've always been quite curious about. Because the resumes are different from CVs in the way that you tailor your resume to
Mm-hmm.
the company or role that you are applying for. But since this is LinkedIn, and this is just like your whole profile, um,
Mm.
is it better to like generalize your LinkedIn profile to cover like a lot of different roles that you can cover, or is it best if you like decide on a niche already and that's what you customize your profile for?
Mm. Great question. My general rule of thumb is that I will always make it customized and niche. So what you can do on LinkedIn is that you can put in a slew of different experiences, and then you can configure it so that you're only showing a couple at a time, or not. But whatever is public, like think about like if you are actively looking for a job right now, really the first impression that you're going to make is whatever is on your profile. And the rule I have there is to make it specific, so that people are visiting it and know, oh, okay, this person, like they're branded in this way. This person is like good in these specific skills. And maybe the trade-off is that it's not a plethora of different things, and you're not showing that you can be varied, etc. But what we found is that hiring managers and recruiters do want to see like something specific, out of your profile or out of the people that they're hiring, and that also gives you like an opportunity to emphasize any like strengths, and be that person there. Um, uh, what I like typically see or hear about for interviews, for example, is that they'll always brand a specific person according to like a trait that they have, right? It might be that person who wore that white shirt the other day, or it might be the person who's really good at data science, and is going to be a great asset. So would tailor your LinkedIn profile, if you're actively recruiting, would tailor your LinkedIn profile based on what you want hiring managers and recruiters to like remember about you. And it's okay if you're not as general or as encompassing. It's important to be a bit more focused when you're actively recruiting.
Yeah, I think as a person who has hired on LinkedIn before, I think that's very useful, because I have encountered like screening a lot of different profiles, and if it's all over the place, there's really not one thing that I can attribute to this
Mm-hmm.
person, which makes you a bit less memorable than someone who, let's say, is very I guess explicit about what they can bring already, or someone who knows already what they bring to the table. um so jumping off from that question, I personally, as I mentioned before we went live, I've tried LinkedIn to hire for Leah before, and we do have this statistic going around like in HR, with like people looking at resumes for just like an average of I think 7 seconds. Is it like longer or
Mm,
shorter on LinkedIn? Do you have some idea on how that is on your platform? I think that's something you guys measure. Um,
that's a great question. Uh, I'll say like I particularly don't know the stat or the number. I'm sure there is like the profile. Okay, there's lots of different teams on LinkedIn. I'm sure the profile team, or what do you call the identity team, that's focused specifically on like features building and profile, do have that stat. What I will say though is uh, the reason why I think I showed the featured, let me just go back to that slide, is so in my profile, right at the
mhm,
bottom, we have this thing called featured. It's a relatively new feature, and part of the reason why that the impetus for why that was built, was to give people who are visiting profiles that really quick 1 second. Okay, here are the things that this person is emphasizing. Here are the things that I can look at immediately, and that's whatever is at the very top of a profile is a good signal, for everyone else to know that like these are things that are important, for anyone to see and visit on. So to an extent, like I'm sure that like 7 second rule in general for resumes is true. Um, so would emphasize to like work on that featured section, and really figure out, okay, which are the top 2 or 3 things that I want hiring managers or whoever else to see immediately, and would also emphasize leveraging that about section, where it's really a chance to tell your story. Like the rest of it is going to be pretty standard, like
mhm.
experiences, pretty standard like skills that you built, but the about section is really like my favorite about sections are definitely like me learning more about that person, me learning more about, okay, why did they make those decisions, and how do how can they stand out, a bit more, beyond just like um, specific experiences. So we definitely leverage the about section and the featured section on your profile.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that because like on the I guess on the hiring manager like UI, I would need to scroll down to see like the experiences, but like instantly I can see like the person's photo and headline and
Mhm.
about section, and
Mhm.
like what I see there determines whether I scroll down or not, to be honest. And I've seen some
Mhm.
like hiring manager friends like really just breeze through resume or profiles on LinkedIn just based on like that information at the top. So
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about those like specific features, like starting with the photo. Do you have any
Mm,
like specific tips on like what photo to use? What probably would get me like more attention on
yeah.
on the platform?
Great questions. I think specifically I'll talk about the photo, and I'll talk about like the what we call the headlines.
Headlines.
So on mine it's like product at LinkedIn, KP fellow. Um, uh, so these two are really important in that if people are not visiting your profile, they'll still be able to see this. And this is already like an instant, like, because it follows you everywhere, right? When you type a comment, when you edit something, when you do something in your feed, your name, which you can't really change, your name, your headline, and your profile photo follow you everywhere at LinkedIn. What I'll say for the profile photo, and I know a lot of people are new grads or still students in the audience, but what I'll say is don't put your graduation photo. Um, uh, what I hear from hiring managers and recruiters in general is like that shows that you are very young in your career, and very junior in your career, which like that I know it's like a good signal if you're coming from a specific school, but in general, like you want to brand yourself as uh, um, having a bit more experience, or wanting to get into those full-time roles, whereas that like first signal is going to tell me, oh, okay, this person is junior, maybe I'll skip them for this round, kind of thing. So that's one. And second is definitely put something a bit more professional, or if there's it doesn't have to be like a studio, like mine is not like pictured in a studio or anything fancy, but somewhere where it's still showing a good amount of your face, and well lit. People can recognize who you are. I think is just some standard way to be showing the professionalism out of it. Now the headline part is, I mean, the good thing about the headline is that you can put a lot of characters in it, but I think similar to the rest of your profile, it's a good signal of how you want to be branding yourself. So specifically with mine is like, I want to emphasize that I'm a product manager and doing a lot of product work. And LinkedIn has a good brand name, so putting that within the headline as well. Reason I put KP Fellow is it's also a good signal within the Bay Area of like, okay, cool, this person was able to go through this fellowship, and is branded well as well. Some other headlines that I've seen are we're hiring or I'm hiring. You know, if you want to be branding yourself as a hiring manager, definitely go for it. If you want to be branding yourself as like, I know some people talk about being like a leader in their field, like they won some award, or they're a thought leader in a specific space. Definitely feel free to put it there. It's going to be really the first or negative one first impression of anyone before they even come into your profile. So figure out how you're going to be branding yourself and make sure that's also clear throughout the rest of your profile.
How do you feel about those who would put like course at school, if like they're a fresh grad, for example? Is that something that is advisable, or would you recommend for them to like go a different path on their headline, like probably like these are the opportunities or I'm looking for, or like I'm an aspiring this? Yeah, what do you think of
Yeah,
that?
great question. I think also the latter for sure is like you can already tell people what you're searching for, and so they can help you out. I think the course on your profile is also already going to be seen on your education section, which again, like, and this is again my piece of advice and personal opinion is, you don't need to be emphasizing necessarily the different courses or the fact that you are in school or graduate out of school. I mean, they'll find out eventually, not saying that you should lie, but important to emphasize like what you're trying to brand yourself as. And if there's nothing in particular that you're really starting out and you're trying to get that experience, I think it's also important to show, okay, I'm looking for a specific type of experience. Hey, network, help me out. So yeah, definitely the latter.
Yeah, I think like putting just what they can connect with you for or what you need help with on your headline
Yeah.
already helps, because like what you said, it's going to be seen everywhere on the platform, even if they don't go on your profile. If they see you commenting on something or reacting to something, that's something that they can instantly see. So if there's someone who is in a helpful mood that day who saw that, maybe that's a way
Yeah.
for you to get an opportunity, right? For the about section though,
Mm-hmm.
because I reviewed a couple of like LinkedIn profiles for our learner community in Liyab, and typically what I see is like they would put their course, like some very like generic like traits that I'm hardworking and everything. Does that really help, or are there different like ways to craft your about section that makes you memorable or attracts more attention from recruiters?
Yeah, great question. And what I'll caveat here is I don't have like specific data for it, but after like iterating on my about section a couple of times, what I've seen was helpful is that how I treat the about section is telling the person who visits my profile the whys behind my decisions, and really like emphasizing the story behind like what connects the dots with all the experiences that I have, and based on that background, like where do I want to be getting to. So here is like what I tried to do here is I want to emphasize that I was really into technology and emerging markets, and my goal is to be impacting those worlds through technology, and then also emphasize like, hey, like I do stuff outside of work. I'm a human too. When I was in the throes of job hunting, this is a bit longer, and really tried to connect the dots between my experiences to give that like more human factor for my story. So that's how I would treat it. Is like, this is a chance to tell your story. Don't make it too long, because then it becomes a really long essay and no one's going to be reading every single bit of it, but enough that it tells a cohesive story to everything else that's on your profile, and leaves that bit of like humanity for anyone reading it.
All right. Thank you so much, Mika. I think those like sections alone, if you focus on like your photo, your headline, and your about, that's already one way to really up your game and stand out on LinkedIn. As someone who has hired on LinkedIn, not a lot of people invest a lot of like some time or effort into crafting those. So just making some effort there already makes you stand out. We have a question here from the comment section. Who says, still getting the hang of LinkedIn. So let's say I want to connect with someone, but we don't have mutual connections. What's a good way to reach out to them? Like, how do we structure out our message to introduce ourselves to them?
Great question. I kind of touched on it in this email section, where I listed out some cold outreach rules. First thing I'll say is like, don't be afraid to reach out to people, especially if you think that there's value that they can provide for you, but also value that you can eventually provide for them. I think it's generally like seen as like a scary thing to be reaching out cold. I think what I've seen is that you'll be pleasantly surprised about how many people are trying to help you out. That said, what I have seen is helpful are some parts of these 5, a mix of it, right? Is give that personal touch, give that reason for why or how you stumbled upon their profile, or how you're connected to them. One other example that I've seen here is after going to a conference and you heard someone speak, you can use that as like, hey, I heard you speak at this so-and-so conference, like so inspiring, like here's how I think you can help me out, how I can help you out. So that's one, is like the introductory part. How are you connected with them? Why are they someone that you want to be reaching out to? Second is be very specific about like what value you think they can provide. Like you can reach out to so many other people. Why specifically them? Why is their response to you going to be impactful for your life? It's going to be really important. And 3 is make the ask really clear. And again, going back to the specificity part, is like, I will reach out this, I would rather respond to a person who's like, hey, I would love to talk to you about specific cold outreach skills in this 20-minute virtual coffee chat, versus someone that's just like, yeah, I just love to talk to you, period. Make it so easy for them to just say yes, and make that ask really specific and really simple at the very end. So those general rules, I also write more about it on my blog, so feel free to check it out.
All right. Actually, those are really, really helpful because I feel like when we do try to reach out, we're like, oh, I don't want to bother you, so I just want to make it vague and general. But actually, it's a lot easier to respond to someone who knows exactly what the session is going to be about, or who has already a specific question in mind. So that those are very, very great tips, Nico. We have another question, and I think only you can answer this because I don't know how to answer this really. Um, should we invest in activating LinkedIn Premium, or the basic one already suffices?
If I say yes, that means I'm trying to sell it, huh? No. My answer here will be a very general, like it depends. So for me, like when I was putting the really big value that activating LinkedIn Premium provided for me was the in-mail section or the in-mail part, where at some point uh, you will have to be paying for or there's a cap for how many in-mails you're going to be able to give, and how many profiles you're going to be able to search for. Um, so what I did in my job hunt was I looked at so many different profiles of people who are product managers, and I cold outreach so many product managers to just get a coffee chat with them. Maybe caveat that I didn't mention in the cold outreach part is like it's going to be it's scary because you're going to get a lot of rejections. So I definitely had a lot of rejections. But what was helpful for LinkedIn Premium for me was that I didn't have that cap of how many in-mails or how many people I could view. And that got me the quantity enough to get the like few yeses in between, for people to say, yeah, I'll have a coffee chat with you, or yeah, I'll refer you. So if you think that as part of your job hunting journey, if you do want to do that strategy of like reaching out to a lot of people, then yeah, LinkedIn Premium is going to be really helpful there. But if your strategy is more like more passive recruiting, more like, hey, I want opportunities to come to me, like I'll see if there's certain opportunities that I turn on job alerts for, or that I'm searching for, already suffice, and I don't really want to do that active recruiting, then you probably don't need LinkedIn Premium because those you can already get for free.
All right. And we actually have someone who's more curious about your experiences being hired in LinkedIn. So I
Okay.
know you haven't delved too deep about that because you're really just like being helpful and giving our audience some tips. But at least our audience now wants to know more about your story, your experience of being hired in LinkedIn.
Yeah. Okay. I touched on this a little bit briefly, but let me look at okay. So, how I was searching for my job at LinkedIn. So this is maybe a year and a half ago, whereas in the throes of recruiting, I was I just left my previous company because of visa reasons, which is a whole other story. But had been job hunting for like maybe 2 or 3 months already at that point. And what specifically happened with LinkedIn was that I was searching. This is like my search query. I went on LinkedIn and searched LinkedIn product hiring. So I was interested in understanding who within this specific company, LinkedIn, was hiring for product managers. And I did this couple iterations for like Facebook product hiring, or like other company, insert company here, product hiring. And that showed me the list of people who were hiring managers for that company. And then I curated a bunch and reached out to specific people that was like, hey, like, I think I would like to work for this person. Message them, and really the first person that actually this is her profile, but the first person that came out when I searched for LinkedIn is my boss today. So I reached out to her. At that time, I generally knew that she was hiring for product because she had mentioned it in her profile. And what I think I shared was, hey, I'm really interested in LinkedIn and in your specific team. Here are the ways that I can like provide value for your company and for your team, and list those out in an email, and then also added in like a personal note of like, I think I talked about something on her profile, where I was like, hey, you mentioned this on your profile. I'm also interested in this thing. Something in the lines of that, where it's like, hey, there's this personal touch, there's this connection. And I did my research, right? And then she reached out and said, hey, your profile looks interesting. Here, continue the conversation with my recruiter. And what happened at that point, background story here is that like, I was relatively earlier in my career in product, and I kept getting rejected because they kept saying, oh, you're too junior or you're too early in your career. Whereas like, I was competing with other more senior product managers. But what happened in that story is that the hiring manager already gave that like signal of, hey, this person could be qualified. Hey, recruiter, like just fast track this person's profile. And so then the recruiter didn't have the chance to say, oh, this person is too junior. Like then I was already in the throes, right? And then after interviews, after going through the whole loop in the process, I was able to be on their team and work for that person that I initially reached out to, and she's my boss today. I like sharing that story. I also like sharing that story in the context of like this product that I'm building, the open to hiring thing. Because yeah, I'm very close to my heart, and really excited to be building this for everyone else to see.
All right. Thank you so much, Mika, for sharing that story. I hope those who are watching this right now and are really looking to, apply on LinkedIn or just look for opportunities on LinkedIn, are inspired by your story. I particularly like that we're ending on that note, because like you are like living proof that like even just by reaching out to people on LinkedIn, not necessarily through like saving or applying to jobs there, but just even leveraging your network, like what you were like what you wanted to remind us of, helps you get opportunities that probably like in other, like I guess, traditional ways of job searching, you won't be able to get, which is why I really appreciate like LinkedIn as a platform, not just as a way to like put your profile out there, but just really connecting with people. So with that said, we are close to 11. So I don't want to take any more of your time, but just like this whole conversation, this whole session, I have learned so much, and even from your story. So thank you so much, Mika, for joining us today. And like what she said, check out her blog if you want to know like the specifics of her story, of how she got her product management job, but also like all of the different hacks that she did along the way. Maybe if you want to plug anything else, Mika, now's your chance.
Yeah, I think the main thing is, yeah, definitely check out my blog, and let me know if you have any feedback for this presentation, or any feedback for anything on the blog if you want me to be writing about anything else. But yeah, really appreciate the time here. Really had a lot of fun. So thanks for the invite, Dee.
Yeah, and I guess they can connect with you on LinkedIn
Yeah.
if they have
Yes, please
any
do.
more questions, right? Okay, and that concludes today's session. Tomorrow, so LinkedIn is such a popular platform all over the world, but tomorrow we are gonna be introduced to a relatively new hiring platform founded here in the Philippines. It's called Workbean. We will have the founder of Workbean, Cass, to share tips specific to their platform. Again, why we wanted to feature a lot of different platforms here in the series is because they have their own strengths and benefits. So, like what Mika did today, like LinkedIn really leverages on your network, and they have a lot of features built around exactly that. Workbean, on the other hand, is more culture centric. So the job searching experience there is really just looking at what the culture of the company is like through the different features that they have. But we'll learn more about that tomorrow. So I will see you all again tomorrow at 10 a.m., where we will be live here on Liab's Facebook page. And so thank you so much and enjoy the rest of the day. Bye.